Opposition MPs want the government to order Statistics Canada to cease and desist. That's after learning the government agency plans to collect the financial data of hundreds of thousands of Canadians without their consent. Today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau insisted Canadians' data is safe, but that isn't stopping the Privacy Commissioner from investigating. So why does StatsCan need all that information? Anil Arora is the Chief Statistician of Canada. Hi, Mr. Arora. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
I appreciate it. Why doesn't Statistics Canada need the consent of Canadians to use this data?
Well, in fact, every act that you see that governs statistical agencies in the world, the modern world, gives statistical agencies the power to be able to get at information to make sure that it's representative of what's happening in a country. So that ability to be able to get information, not just from those that want to participate or want their information, but really a sample that actually reflects what's happening in the country. So even in Canada, the Privacy Act carves out this requirement, the PIPEDA carves out this requirement, and the Statistics Act explicitly allows the agency to be able to collect data. Now, you know, we use that in a very responsible way. We know where the needs of Canadians are such that we can provide good enough data. And there are other areas where we know that the rigor and the detail that's required really requires us to go beyond that, in which case we have to have a mandatory survey, or we have to make sure that the samples that we look at are representative of every Canadian.
If that's the mandate and that's the necessity for it, what do you need my address for? What do you need my social insurance number for? That, to me, doesn't seem to be necessary for data representation.
Yeah. In fact, we don't need it. I don't personally,
Why do you have it
within the statistical agency, need to be able to know who you are or who you specifically or I specifically are making the transition. So remember, when we put out statistics, we put them out by a geographical area. So we need something to anchor it to a place in point. So we know that, for example, the house prices in Richmond, BC are, going up by a certain amount, or those in Richmond, Ontario are going out by a certain amount. So we need to be able to tag it to a particular area. But I'm not interested in that one individual person or that one individual dwellings. So we need them for, in some cases, just to make sure that we're not duplicating records.
That's what you need a social insurance number for?
So what we do is, and that's what we're trying to do, is to make sure that there is a representative sample and that we're not duplicating or we're not misrepresenting the kind of, Canadians' demographic characteristics and so on. As soon as a data record comes in, and it doesn't matter, by the way, if it's through a voluntary survey or somebody who's given a consent or doesn't have a consent, it doesn't matter. Once it comes through the door at Statistics Canada, it is given kit glove treatment in terms of privacy and confidentiality protection. In fact, the law requires us to do that. Well, what do? We strip all the identifiers right off the bat. They get put in a vault, and what we do then
What a vault?
is...
Do they get destroyed? Do they get held by somebody, by some
we have retention
computer
periods.
program?
We have retention periods that we discuss with the Privacy Commissioner. In some cases, we have to keep them to be able to link it back for other analysis that we do. But it's not everybody at Statistics Canada that, even within an agency which is governed by law to protect the confidentiality, even there we have, enclaves, if you like, where those keys are given. So we take that information off, we give it a random number or a generated number, and from that on, it is an anonymized record. And by the time we release it, nobody else gets that one individual record, not a government department, not an individual that wants to look at it. It doesn't matter. Not even a federal court can require us to give that data. So we take that very seriously. What we're interested in are the statistical trends that we want to be able to give people with the quality that's inherent with it.
These stories have focused on two separate, the banks, compelling the banks to give it, and then a credit agency. Have there been other instances in the past where this amount of data, you've obtained this amount of data?
Well, look, we using administrative data and innovative ways in which to collect information is nothing new to Statistics Canada.
But in this form, you know what I'm saying? Like, people are concerned because it seems like a credit union agency has my info and then you've obtained it. Have you done that in the past?
So look, let me tell you about why are we doing this and why are we going into this new way.
This is new then.
Some parts of it are new, and some parts of it are things that we've done on an ongoing basis for a long, long time. So we know today that more than 75% of Canadians do all their banking, all their transactions. You want to send money to somebody, most people do it electronically. right? So we have to go to where people behave and where they're doing business today. So you can't say, Statistics Canada should be working with, paper and pencil, and worrying about the, 20, 25% that are doing things in a certain way. And, Statistics Canada, shouldn't go to these sources, and those should be, reserved for private entities to be able to use that data in the way that they want to. The government needs that information. We have significant data gaps today on how are we embracing the digital economy. The sharing economy, what kind of revenues get, generated by the household sector, whether they're, consuming Netflix or Airbnb and using that. We don't have any good data on that. Or in a traditional way, it takes 2 to 3 years to get you that information. In the pace in which the digital economy is working, that is history. That's ancient history. People want to know what's happening today, and they want to know what's going on today. Another example is the leveraging. We know house prices are increasing. They're different in different parts of neighborhoods, even just a few blocks away. We need to be able to understand who, in terms of statistical sense, is being more leveraged, and what are the policies that make sure, that we've got the ability for people to be able to go in and stay.
But a lot of what you're talking about isn't necessarily just happened in the past year. I've been banking online for 10 years. I've been sending money over the internet for 5 years. So have you been accessing that information, this type of information, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, or is these instances the first times that you've requested that kind of data?
An excellent question. So what we're finding, some of these trends occur over time, right, as you've just mentioned. So on the one hand, we're seeing increased amounts of habits, as I said, in the digital form. That has taken off in a very short timeline, where we transfer money electronically, we use Interact, we use all sorts of other electronic means to transfer funds and conduct transactions. On the other hand, what's also happened is that the traditional methods by which we collect this kind of information is surveys. So we do a survey every 3 years, for example, to select a number of households in Canada to say, can you keep a diary and tell us what you're spending every dollar on? Well, today, as I said, it doesn't make sense to be able to give you information of what happened 3 years ago, because that's how long it takes. And we're finding that, in fact, Canadians are busy, they don't have phone lines at home, and we're getting
So you're not waiting for the answer, you're just taking it.
So look, and that's why I said this is a statistical need to be able to do it. We don't care about the individual records per se.
I understand the assurances you're providing, but I'm trying to ascertain whether this is the first time that you have gone after this amount of data without express consent of the people participating, or if you have done it before. I understand all the
mode
your
is
justification.
different.
So this is new.
The mode is different. There's no question about it that we are now going to more electronic sources. But the use of administrative data records, between provinces, between other entities, that is not something new to Statistics Canada or to any other statistical agency in the world.
Do you understand the concern of people who are hearing this story? And I ask
Absolutely.
because you're saying, don't worry, we're going to safeguard this info. We're not interested in your private information. With respect, there are many privacy breaches to show otherwise. There are many Canadians who have had their information taken and used, their identities co-opted. The internet is a vast place where bad things can happen. Do you understand why it is so alarming to so many Canadians to hear that this amount of my information was taken without me knowing?
Well, look. First of all, nothing has been taken in this case. I mean, we're still working through with the banks, and we're going to be working with them, and we have been for a year. We've had the privacy commissioner work with us for in his office.
Although he's investigating now too.
And I reached out to him yesterday and said, if over the course of the year we've been working with your folks to come up with, and we've gone above and beyond. We've taken all your recommendations into account. If there's more things that we can do to even provide greater assurance to Canadians, let's do it. I'm all open for it. We've been operating in a transparent way. We want to do right by Canadians to make sure that the privacy of their information is always protected. That's what every one of our employees that comes into work, that's the first thing they think about is, how do I make sure that privacy and confidentiality are respected? So that's no different, as I said,
I'm sure the people who worked at
response.
Equifax would have said the same thing, right?
Well, look, it's the digital world. This is the way in which Canadians are now consuming and actually conducting things. We, as a statistical agency, have to apply the same statistical measures, but now in the digital world as well, because that's what our users want. They want timely data. They want it of that high quality. And for us as a government, we can't be hamstrung by saying, you use old methods, it's okay in the traditional way, but not in the digital way. That just doesn't make any sense from a statistical perspective.
Okay, I have to leave it there. I'm unfortunately out of time, but thank you, Mr. Arora.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
your
much.
time.